Okay. I ran. I'm back from a run. I'm sweaty, I'm dirty, I'm shirtless. I mowed lawns all day. Probably not even gonna play a song. I don't want to touch my guitar like this. But we're on day 2 of the commitment. Ow. And such a beautiful fucking run through Pennypack Park that I ran. Just glistening. And it reminded me of all these runs that I was running in March when I first started these readings. And just coming right in off the run, all out of breath and stuff. I thought, let's just turn this camera on so I can get this thing done. I could just sit here for 10 minutes, and I might, because I can. But I'm just going to start reading and not be rude to those of you who want to hear what I have to say, or just feel what it feels like to spend time in my virtual presence. I get a lot out of spending time in the virtual presence of so many, and I know myself to be so sensitive and peaceful and loving and non-ideologically possessed, which is simply to say the core of my ontology is rooted in uncertainty, and that uncertainty gets rejuvenated and revivified when I run in the woods. It's just a kaleidoscope of unknowingness and of ever-changingness with nothing to hold on to. This is the passage of time. And hey, Dave. Just, beautiful feeling of connected. You know, it's like I talk to you, you're not there. You're just a conglomeration of atoms that are somehow capturing this in a way that can be interpreted later. Dave is not here. De Mello's not here. My cat is barely here. Barn barn. Oh, you babe. Oh, you're my babe all the time. Yeah. Yeah, you are. So you get reminded of uncertainty by things from time to time. And De Mello is also aware of this. He seems to remember every 12 seconds. When I'm running, I remember these things. Or when I'm so touched by the world and so affected by the stream of karma that I inherit and propagate. You just... I will refrain from body horror metaphors to describe what it feels like to feel so connected. No, I don't want to avoid that. It's fun. It's like... not fun. You know, fish hook in the mouth, dragged along. But can't stop it. Nice feeling when running in the woods of the world moving by me. It's like, even though I've been not running at all, it's my first run in probably 2 months, smoking spliffs. I've smoked hundreds of spliffs in the last 2 months. Some nights I smoke 3 spliffs, 4 spliffs. Other days where I smoke 6 spliffs. Not the best for the lungs. Just clouds of weed and nicotine. And I just ran. Apparently my body's learned how to run a little bit, so it's cool. I can now run at a slow speed for a couple miles with no prob, and at the end I sprint out, and felt good. Also been working outside a lot, also mowed lawns all day. I mean, not me. Gross mess. Feels... Yeah, I just, like, when I shower, I'm not going to want to do this, so we're getting it done, baby. All right, here we go. Enough of the Ben, and let's get into some De Mello. So we are going to just read one. Maybe I'll noodle on the guitar afterwards if I feel like it. Or maybe even play a song. I don't know. I don't know. I don't care. You don't care either because you're not there. There's 9 of you. Okay, this one's called Men of Violence, and I am fascinated to read this meditation. Here we go. The kingdom of heaven has suffered violence, and men of violence take it by force. I have a feeling this one's going to be intense for me. I'll try to refrain from my own comment. As a really, really, really peaceful person who understands and recognizes that violence is one of the main dominating forces of evolution, biologically and culturally, that have brought humans to where we are. It is the ability to asymmetrically manifest your will over others, and the moving from sticks to slingshots to guns to armor to swords to guns to armor to armies to strategies to nukes, not to mention the entire Machiavellian, informational, and game theoretic side of it. You're beyond belief naive if you think the geopolitical landscape is dominated. Is the logic that the spirit that inhabits the movers and shakers of our geopolitical landscape, that 10 to 50,000 roughly non-aligned group of technocrats. I don't know how to describe the Pareto distribution of important people in the world, but it is a game of violence. Don't kid yourself. It's not a partisan thing, it's a power thing. Don't kid yourself, guys. It is a potentially morally, I would not say justifiable thing, but it's a morally justificationable thing. I'm looking at you, Billy Crystal. I know you think you're doing the right thing out there with your imperialism. Yeah, and I know this is. It's funny, as I give away my narrative intuitions, I can already feel uncertainty creeping back up, and alternative ways of framing that would dissolve, in some ways, what I think I'm trying to say. I'll work it out. I'm just going to keep. Let's think you come to the end of your thought and you stop and you watch and you see what emerges. And that's it. Each new moment is here to teach us the new thing. Really, I should read this. But I felt a really strong sense of remembering some really heavy, some just pure lessons that are not things that words capture even a little bit. But it was something like the lesson is that you will always have to relearn the lesson. The lesson is you will forget the lesson, and it is incumbent upon you in this new, now, present moment to pay attention so that you can learn the lesson of this moment. And then in the next moment, you pay attention to that, and you learn that moment's lesson. And you will forget the lesson you learned before. That is it's tied into the lesson. And its majesty and truth and depth, whatever that lesson was, whatever that insight was, whatever that moment of collapsing the imagination of samsara into something closer to this non-memory, non-expectation, actual sensory and perceived now moment. Okay, I'm reading the fucking essay! I'm Bill Burr. Bill Burr comes in a Monday morning. I'm just checking in on ya. He's so fun. Okay, here we go. Compare the serene and simple splendor of a rose in bloom with the tensions and recklessness of your life. The rose has a gift that you lack. It is perfectly content to be itself. It has not been programmed from birth, as you have been, to be so dissatisfied with itself. So it has not the slightest urge to be anything other than it is. That is why it possesses the artless grace and absence of inner conflict that among humans is only found in little children and mystics. I'm looking at you, future Ben. Absent conflict? Consider your sad condition. You are always dissatisfied with yourself, always wanting to change yourself. You are so full of violence and self-intolerance, which only grows with every effort that you make to change yourself. You're so full of violence. Okay, interesting. It's different. I'm the man of violence. Everything I said before is irrelevant. So any change you achieve is always accompanied by inner conflict, and you suffer when you see others achieve what you have not and become what you are not. Would you be tormented by jealousy and envy if, like the rose, you were content to be what you are and never aspired to what you are not? But you are driven, are you not, to be like someone else who has more knowledge, better looks, popularity, or success than you? I want to be Jordan Hall, personally. That is seems like the most well-rounded and insightful and just like tough and humble and clear-minded and I said insightful, but it's deeper than that. Something about Jordan Hall is just an aspirational thing. So I'm not that, and there's a lot of other aspirational people. I know that this is not, if you are that other dude, if you're Vinay Gupta, I don't know, I'm just making up names now. If you're somebody else who, you aspire to be that person, you just, okay, maybe, I don't know. It's an endless hall of mirrors. It's like, you say the thing, you imagine how it can be thought of differently, and you try to reframe it, and there's no point. And this is your life, and this is, somewhere in there is your lesson. Me, Ben, I'm talking to myself. All of this is talking to myself. You're here, whoever you are, if you're not me, as a guest in my space. And you're welcome. That I'm inviting you in, actually. There's an interesting attitudinal shift. You're welcome. I don't have to let you into this moment. Although I will say that without imagining you here, this moment would be very different. I might just be taking a shower and going over to the skies and smoke a spliff or something, or whatever I'd be doing. Glug. Would you be tormented by jealousy and envy if, like the rose, you're content to be what you are never... Okay. Content to be what you are and never aspired to what you are not. But you are driven, are you not, to be... Right, okay, sorry. Like someone else who has more knowledge and better looks, more popularity and success than you. You want to become more virtuous, yes. More loving, yes. More meditative, yes. You want to find God, to come closer to ideas. Yes, Anthony De Mello. Does that make me... right, so you're trying to point me in a different direction. Think of the sad history of your efforts at self-improvement that either ended in disaster or succeeded only at the cost of struggle and pain. Now suppose you desisted from all efforts to change yourself and from all self-dissatisfaction. Would you then be doomed to sleep having passively accepted everything in you and around you? There's another way besides laborious self-pushing on the one hand and stagnant self-acceptance on the other. This is unbelievable. Like, you ponder these dichotomies and they feel so untranscendable. And just to have someone point out clearly the dichotomy you're attempting to, integrate and offer some kind of path, even if it's a little beyond, is, super duper special. It's super special. We're very lucky. Okay. There is another way besides laborious self-pushing on one hand and stagnant acceptance on the other. It is the way of self-understanding. This is far from easy because to understand what you are requires complete freedom from all desire to change what you are into something else. You will see this if you compare the attitude of a scientist who studies the habits of ants without the slightest desire to change them, with the attitude of a dog trainer who studies the habits of a dog with the view of making it learn something. If what you attempt is not to change yourself but to observe yourself, to study every one of your reactions to people and things without judgment or condemnation or desire to reform yourself, your observation will be non-selective, comprehensive, never fixed on rigid conclusions, always open and fresh from moment to moment. Then you will notice a marvelous thing happening within you. You will be flooded with the light of awareness. You will become transparent and transformed. Will change occur then? Oh yes, in you and in your surroundings. But it will not be brought about by your cunning, restless ego that is forever competing, comparing, coercing, sermonizing, manipulating in its intolerance and its ambitions, thereby creating tension and conflict and resistance between you and nature. An exhausting, self-defeating process like driving with your brakes on. No, the transforming light of awareness brushes aside your scheming, self-seeking ego to give nature full rein to bring about the kind of change that she produces in the rose, artless, graceful, unself-conscious, wholesome, untainted by inner conflict. Since all change is violent, she will be violent! Wow! Since all change is violent, she will be violent. But the marvelous quality of nature violence, unlike ego violence, is that it does not spring from intolerance and self-hatred. So there is no anger in the rainstorm that carries everything before it, or the fish that devour their young in obedience to ecological laws we know not, or body cells when they destroy each other in the interest of a higher good. When nature destroys, it is not from ambition or greed or self-aggrandizement, but it is obedience to mysterious laws that seek the good of the whole universe above the survival and well-being of the parts. It is this kind of violence that arises within the mystics who storm against the ideas and structures that have become entrenched in their societies and cultures when awareness awakens them to evils their contemporaries are blind to. It is this violence that causes the rose. That is a really hard sentence for me to parse. I do not know what's ego and what's mystic in my storming against the ideas and structures that have become entrenched in my society. I do feel absolutely storming against the ideas and structures that are entrenched in my society. And there's a little... I'm so worried that it comes from ego, that it buries all the words. It buries all the words. It's just like, all I want is for the love, for the compassion, for the love, for the energy of well-wishing to permeate, period. And as some sort of conceptual structure attempts to hold that and house that, it's like I can't, the closest I can get is the meta-modern movement of these Schmachtenberger's halls. The reason I'm reading this book is because Schmachtenberger recommended it on Peter Lindbergh's The Stoa, and this is a really beautiful tiny community. It's the people are using words in a way that feel that kind of appropriate mysticism. Anyway, okay. It is this violence that causes the rose to come into being, and in the face of forces hostile to it. And it is this violence that the rose, like the mystic, will sweetly succumb to after it has opened its petals to the sun and lives in fragile feeling loveliness, quite unconcerned to add a single extra minute to its allotted span of life. And so it lives in blessedness and beauty like the birds of the air and the flowers of the field. With no trace of the restlessness and dissatisfaction, the jealousy and anxiety, the competitiveness that characterizes the world of human beings who seek to control and coerce rather than content to flower into awareness, leaving all chains to the mighty force of God in nature. So we're about to get 20 minutes. Oh God, we're going to play something. How come it eats you in the morning sometimes, but never tries to take your life? Well, memory's just a mind in... I think I might have played the song already. Oh well. Motion. It doesn't feel like a song. I'll play half of it. Just ain't to say you get a million tries. When it hits you for the first time, the last time, how it hypnotized you deep into your bed. Well, it seems like a second eyelid pastime. Pastime, it's a diesel feeling mouth from where you tread. It isn't swell, this constant recognition, something in a life you will not get. And as the lucid drains the separate sides out of your brains until there's really nothing lucid left. Well, they say I must have prophesied to meet you. Yeah, definitely play the song. It's doubtful that that prophecy was real. It's not real, it's so real. How can we measure it in the numbers? Numbers, you're the sorry spinning head. You're just a wheel. Okay, thanks. I'm at a dojo! Oh yeah, give me some of that beard. Give me some beard. It's all beard. It's all beard. Beard.